What happens when America's sweetheart collides with Hollywood royalty turned real royalty and the gloves come off on live television? We're looking back at one of the most explosive moments in daytime TV history, where Kelly Clarkson left Meghan Markle stunned in an interview that had viewers picking their jaws up off the floor. Before we dive into the details, hit subscribe and share in the comments what you think really happened, because this is a story you won't believe. The Kelly Clarkson Show was meant to be a friendly, upbeat chat. Meghan was expected to promote her latest projects, maybe share a touch of royalty. Instead, what unfolded showed how quickly things can unravel when strong personalities clash. Kelly, known for her warm style and genuine curiosity, prepared what she thought were harmless questions. Meghan, however, arrived with her own agenda. From the moment she sat down, the energy in the studio felt charged in all the wrong ways. So, Meghan, let's start with something fun. Kelly began with her signature bright smile. I want to ask about your new cookbook project. You've said cooking brings people together. But I'm curious, growing up in Los Angeles, building a career, traveling the world, and yet you've often said you felt isolated and didn't know much about royal protocol. Can you explain? Because from the outside, it seems you were already worldly before marrying into the royal family. The question sounded harmless. But Meghan instantly stiffened. Her media training kicked in as she shifted in her chair, smiling politely. Well, Kelly, there's a difference between being worldly and understanding a 1,000-year-old institution. No amount of travel or career success can prepare you for that kind of tradition and expectation. Kelly nodded, but her expression suggested doubt. I get that. I really do. But you were on Suits for 7 seasons. You've done humanitarian work. You ran a lifestyle blog. You worked with publicists, attended events, knew how to handle media. Surely some of those skills carried over. You knew how to work a room. It's completely different, Meghan replied, her tone tightening. Being on a set is nothing like representing the crown. The scrutiny, the protocols, it's incomparable. Kelly leaned in, her journalist instincts taking over. But Meghan, and I mean this sincerely, you did research before marrying Harry, right? This wasn't a surprise wedding. You had time to prepare and people to guide you. The studio audience was silent now. Meghan's smile grew strained. Kelly, I think you're oversimplifying what it means to marry into the British royal family. No research prepares you for that reality. I'm not trying to oversimplify, Kelly answered, still friendly but firmer. I'm just trying to understand. On one hand, you describe yourself as independent, successful, worldly. On the other, you say you were completely unprepared and naive about royal life. Which version is the real Meghan? The tension was palpable. Meghan tried to deflect, but the question struck a nerve. That's a false dichotomy. Kelly, a person can be accomplished in one area and still unprepared for something entirely different. Of course, Kelly agreed. But here's where I struggle. You've said you felt silenced in the royal family. Yet before your marriage, you had multiple platforms. Your blog, social media, acting, advocacy. You were outspoken on politics and feminism. So when you say you lost your voice, do you mean you lost the specific voice you wanted? The question hung like a challenge. Meghan's composure faltered. There's a difference between having a platform and having agency. Representing an institution means your personal voice becomes secondary. Kelly raised her eyebrows. But you understood that, right? That's a core part of being a working royal. It's not like that was hidden. Knowing something intellectually and living it are two different things. Meghan shot back, her tone sharp. Of course, Kelly said smoothly. But Meghan, you're intelligent, articulate, media savvy. You survived Hollywood, which is hardly forgiving, especially to women. Are you saying you didn't fully understand what you were signing up for? Kelly asked. The audience was glued to the exchange. This was no soft interview. Meghan shifted again, clearly uncomfortable with where things were heading. I think you're being reductive about what it means to join the royal family. Kelly let the words settle before replying, her tone calm but firm. Meghan, I'm not being reductive. I'm trying to understand your story because it keeps shifting. In some interviews, you're the experienced actress who knew exactly what she wanted. In others, you're the naive American caught off guard. Which version is true? Or is it more complicated than either of those? The cameras caught Meghan's jaw tighten. You're oversimplifying a very complex situation. And honestly, I'm surprised by the tone of these questions. Kelly's smile remained, though her eyes sharpened. I'm sorry if the tone feels off. I genuinely want to understand. But when a story has so many variations, it's natural to ask for clarity. Meghan's voice cooled further. Kelly reached for her notes. For instance, in your engagement interview, said Harry had to explain who he was because you didn't follow the royal family. Yet later, you admitted to Googling him before your first date. Sometimes you describe being totally unprepared for royal life, and other times you mention the research and guidance you had. Which version is accurate? The studio fell silent. Meghan's training clashed with her rising irritation. Context matters, Kelly. You're taking things out of context. Kelly nodded thoughtfully. Maybe. So let's get context. When you say you felt silenced, can you give me a specific example of something you wanted to say or do but weren't allowed to? Meghan hesitated. Well, there were many times I felt unheard. Can you give me one specific example? Kelly pressed. Gently but firmly. I think the overall pattern is more important than one moment. Meghan deflected. Kelly smiled, catching the dodge. But patterns are made of specific incidents. If there was such a clear pattern, surely you can recall one example that shows what you mean. The tension in the room thickened. Meghan took a deep breath to buy time. Kelly, I think you're approaching this from an American perspective. That's understandable, but the British system is more subtle. Kelly tilted her head, unconvinced. Okay, cultural differences play a role. But subtle or not, are you saying that during your time as a working royal, you can't recall one specific moment where you wanted to speak and were told no? It wasn't always that direct, Meghan answered, her voice less certain now. So it was more indirect pressure. Kelly asked. You felt you couldn't speak on certain issues because of your position. Exactly, Meghan said, sounding relieved. So when you spoke on voting, women's rights, social justice, that was you pushing against that pressure. Yes, those issues mattered to me, Meghan confirmed. Kelly glanced at her notes again. But Meghan, you spoke about voting during the U.S. election while still a working royal. You and Harry filmed that video urging Americans to vote. So clearly, you did have a voice on things that mattered. Meghan's face paled slightly. That was different. How so? Kelly asked evenly. We were speaking broadly about civic duty, not endorsing anyone, Meghan explained. Kelly's eyebrows lifted. But many interpreted it as support for Biden over Trump. The timing, the language, it seemed clear. And the palace didn't stop you. Meghan shifted uneasily. We were very careful with our wording. Of course, Kelly replied smoothly. But my point is, you did have a voice. You still found ways to say what you wanted, even within the constraints of your role. So when you say you were silenced, it sounds more like you had to be strategic in how you communicated, not that you were completely muted. The audience followed the lacked exchange like a tennis match, eyes darting between the two women. Meghan was visibly frustrated now. I think you're missing the bigger picture, Kelly. Then help me see it. Kelly replied, her tone open. Because from where I sit, it seems you had opportunities to speak. You took them, and when criticism followed, You described it as being silenced. But isn't that just part of public life? You can speak, but you can't control the reaction. Meghan's composure slipped further. The scrutiny and criticism I faced was unprecedented. Kelly leaned back, studying her. Was it, though? Kate Middleton has been criticized over her family, her weight, even her parenting. Diana endured brutal press. The Queen has faced criticism throughout her reign. What made your experience different? The racial element, Meghan answered firmly. Absolutely, Kelly agreed instantly. That's unacceptable. Any racist coverage is wrong, and I'm sorry you endured that. But when you say silenced or unsupported, are you referring specifically to the failure to address racism, more to general criticism as well? Meghan hesitated. Both. Okay, then let's separate them. Kelly continued steadily. The racist attacks, absolutely inexcusable. The institution should have done more. But general criticism about fashion, appearances, family drama, isn't that just part of being in the public eye? I get criticized over my weight, my parenting, even my song choices. It comes with the territory. It's not the same. Meghan pushed back. You're right, it's not identical, Kelly acknowledged. But help me understand why it's so different that it supports the claims you've made. Meghan looked taken aback. What claims? Kelly checked her notes. For example, you've said you weren't protected by the institution. Yet there were occasions when the palace issued statements defending you, pursued legal action, or corrected stories. So when you say you weren't protected, what exactly do you mean? Those responses were often too little, too late, Meghan countered. But they did happen, Kelly pressed. So it's not that you weren't protected at all, it's that you weren't protected the way or as quickly as you wanted. Isn't that a distinction? That's a distinction without a difference, Meghan shot back. Irritation clear. Kelly shook her head. I disagree. Accuracy matters especially when you're making serious allegations about an institution. Saying you had no protection is very different from saying you had inadequate protection. The room was silent, the tone shifting from celebrity interview to something heavier. Meghan struggled to keep her composure. You're being pedantic. Maybe, Kelly replied with a faint smile. But your story has influenced public opinion and affected relationships. Details matter, don't you think? Meghan's eyes narrowed. Are you saying I lied about my experiences? Kelly stayed calm. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm pointing out inconsistencies in your public statements. That's what journalists do. I thought this was a friendly chat about my projects. Meghan said tightly. It can be, Kelly answered smoothly. But you raised these topics and my audience deserves clarity. You've made serious claims about racism, about being silenced, about lack of support. Those affect how people view the royal family, Britain, even institutional racism itself. Don't you think such claims deserve scrutiny? Meghan shifted uncomfortably, fidgeting with her jewelry. I've been very clear about my experiences. Have you? Kelly asked gently. Because from my research, your story has changed over time. Details shift, emphasis changes, new elements appear. That's not necessarily wrong, but it raises questions of reliability. My story has been consistent. Meghan insisted. Kelly pulled out a tablet. Would you like me to go through some of the differences? I have quotes from various interviews. Panic flickered in Meghan's eyes. No, that won't be necessary. Why not? Kelly asked lightly. If your story has been consistent, then comparing the different versions should only confirm that, right? Meghan looked trapped, and the entire studio sensed it. The audience sat on the edge of their seats, watching what had turned into a masterclass in how to politely but effectively challenge someone's narrative. Kelly kept her warm, approachable demeanor while methodically dismantling Meghan's carefully constructed victim story. The silence stretched uncomfortably before Kelly continued, her tone still kind but now edged with steel. Meghan, I'll be direct because my audience deserves clarity. I have 3 different accounts of how you first learned about royal protocol. In one, you said Harry explained everything beforehand. In another, you said you were thrown in without preparation. In a third, you claimed you had extensive briefings, but that they didn't address the emotional side. Which one is accurate? Meghan's face paled, though her voice came out steadier than expected. Kelly, I think you're twisting my words to create drama for your show. The accusation hit like a bomb. For the first time in the interview, Kelly's professional mask slipped slightly. Excuse me? This isn't journalism, it's a trap designed to humiliate me on live TV, Meghan snapped. Kelly leaned back. Unruffled, though anyone who knew her could see Meghan had just made a major tactical mistake. Meghan, I've asked you straightforward questions about your own public statements. If asking for clarification feels like a trap, maybe the problem isn't my questions. The problem is your agenda. Meghan shot back. You clearly came here with a narrative already in mind. Kelly let out a short, sharp laugh. My narrative. Meghan, you've spent years presenting yourself as a victim of the royal family. And when someone asks you to back it up with specifics, you accuse them of bias. That's rich. The gloves were off now. I shared my truth about racism and neglect, Meghan said, her voice rising. And you're treating it like some kind of fictional story that needs fact-checking. Your truth. Kelly's tone was incredulous. Meghan, truth isn't subjective. Either something happened or it didn't. Either. You received protocol training or you didn't. Either the palace defended you or it didn't. These aren't opinions. You don't understand what it's like to be a black woman in that institution, Meghan said, clearly playing what she thought was her strongest card. Kelly's expression hardened. Don't try to shut down valid questions with identity politics. I'm asking about factual inconsistencies in your statements, not questioning your experience as a black woman. Those are 2 separate issues. The fact that you conflate them says everything about your credibility. The studio went dead silent. Meghan looked stunned that her usual deflection hadn't worked. I can't believe you're speaking to me this way. How am I speaking to you? Kelly asked calmly. I'm asking questions about your own words. If you can't handle clarifying them, maybe you shouldn't be giving interviews. Meghan stood abruptly. I don't have to sit here and be attacked. Sit down, Kelly ordered firmly. No one is attacking you. I'm holding you accountable for your words, something that doesn't seem to happen. Often, the authority in Kelly's voice was unmistakable. And to everyone's surprise, Meghan sat back down, face flushed with anger and embarrassment. This isn't what I agreed to, she muttered. What you agreed to was an interview, Kelly replied evenly. Interviews involve questions. If you only want soft pieces where no one challenges you, maybe stick to friendly podcasts with celebrity friends. Meghan faltered, at a loss for words. I've been honest about my experiences. Have you? Kelly leaned forward, her tone sharp. Because honest people don't need multiple versions of the same story. Honest people don't deflect every direct question. Honest people don't accuse journalists of bias the moment evidence is requested. I don't have to prove anything to you, Meghan insisted. Though her voice was shaking, you're right, you don't, Kelly said. But you can't claim institutional racism without providing specific examples. You can't say you were silenced while giving interviews worldwide. You can't claim you were unprepared while also saying you researched extensively. None of it adds up, Meghan. Meghan was fighting back tears, her polished image crumbling in real time. You don't know what I went through. Then tell me, Kelly urged, her tone softening slightly but staying firm. Give me one specific, verifiable example of institutional racism. not feelings. Not interpretations, an actual incident where someone in the royal family or palace staff treated you differently because of race. The question hung in the air. Meghan opened her mouth several times, but nothing came. Finally, she whispered, "There were conversations about Archie's skin color." "With whom?" Kelly pressed. What exactly was said?" "I can't say," Meghan murmured. "Can't or won't," Kelly countered. "If someone made racist remarks about your child, that's serious. But if you make such claims publicly, you must provide verifiable details. Otherwise, vague accusations do more damage than good." The tension was electric. Meghan looked around desperately for an escape. "I think we're done here," she said, removing her microphone. "We're done when I say we're done," Kelly replied calmly. "You came here to promote your projects and tell your story. Well, this is part of your story too. What happens when someone asks you real questions instead of letting you control the narrative?" Meghan froze, her hand still on the mic. The power dynamic had shifted completely. Kelly turned back to her, her tone once again warm but sharper now. "You're not a victim, Meghan. You're a privileged woman who made choices and didn't like the consequences. You married into one of the world's most famous families and then acted surprised by scrutiny. You left, and when they wouldn't give you what you wanted, you tried to tear them down." The words struck like blows. Kelly's laugh was cold. "What's unfair is using racism as a shield to deflect valid criticism. What's unfair is damaging an institution and hurting people because your feelings were hurt. What's unfair is misleading millions who trusted your story." Then, as if nothing had happened, Kelly faced the camera, her professional smile back in place. "We'll be right back after this break." As the feed cut, Meghan sat shattered, her carefully built facade in ruins. Kelly Clarkson had done what no other interviewer had: exposed the cracks in Meghan Markle's story and shown the world her true colors.